Hello, welcome. We're here talking with Lorena Harris, who is an ABM expert. She is currently an ABM consultant at Ascend Marketing, and she is here to tell us about how ABM and other topics with AI can help up your marketing game. Lorena, would you like to tell us more about yourself?
Sure. Who doesn't like a chance to talk about themselves? So I've been lucky enough to be a VP of marketing at several large financial services companies. And I've also worked at several consulting companies that had large accounts, many of those financial services. So I've come at it from two angles, from the inside and from the consulting side. And what I've seen is that, there's so much complexity in these large organizations, these enterprises, that they're looking for shortcuts and ways to streamline all the time. And of course, AI is something that they were delighted to kind of leverage. And now I think it's to the point where they're almost making AI a member of their team. And those who are not should be thinking about it, because it's going to become kind of a fact of business life that marketing teams need to include AI. And right now, everybody's thinking about that in terms of content creation, but that is certainly not the best and only purpose for AI marketing. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the ABM practices that I've helped create and thinking about some AI applications for that.
Thank you. We're looking forward to it.
First, I wanted to start with just kind of reminding us what ABM is. ABM is a form of demand generation, but it is not the same thing as demand generation, because demand generation generally focuses on target individuals. And of course, account-based marketing is about accounts. And like you like to take individuals on a journey, a buying journey, you also want to take accounts. And that means many members of a buying committee. Large enterprises typically have somebody we consider to be the champion and the person who's kind of leading the charge to procure your services or software. And then there's the person who might have the financial control. Then there's lots of different influencers. People have to sign on, give their okay, technology people, security people, legal people, and of course, procurement. All those have to weigh in. And then there's users who say, I do or don't like the way this performs. So all these people for a large ticket item are part of a decision-making process and each has to have its own piece of information at the right place at the right time in the right format. So think about the difference between demand generation and account-based marketing as you're trying to bring a whole team of people along through your journey. And you're trying to design that journey so that it's the most relevant information goes to the right person at the right time so that the whole group can move forward.
Yeah, I love that. Can you give us an example of a use case of someone you've worked with, how you were able to get that right message to the right member of that buying team at the right time, perhaps even using AI?
Sure. I'll speak quickly about helping a company called Mouser, which is it's an e-commerce store for electronic components. And it's an enormous operation. You would never think of it, but everything that's built by engineers has to be built from parts, and they need it from Mouser. And so the marketing team at Mouser was marketing to engineers because they're the people who need the parts to build the things. But what they found out was that it was the procurement team, the procurement officers that were holding up and really making the decisions. If they didn't know of Mouser, they didn't have a prearranged buying agreement, terms and conditions already signed and everything with them, then it just wasn't going to happen. So they started the whole campaign to make procurement officers at their target companies aware of them and make it easy for the service agreements to be pre-signed, and then their business doubled. So that's the kind of thing that you have to think about when you're thinking about your targets. It's not always the person you think.
Oh, that is a great example. Thank you. Should we go ahead and jump into talking about how to use AI with ABM, or would you like to expand on something else before we jump there?
Well, I would like to say a couple things about what account-based marketing is not, because just like at the beginning where I said it's demand generation, but it's not. It is also not only a tech purchase. Yes, there are brands you've heard of like Demand Base and Sixth Sense and Bombora, and there's lots of leading intent scoring and all kinds of tools that are in the ABM realm. But it's not just a buy it and then you'll be able to do it, because you still have to have a plan, you still have to have a journey, you still have to really understand your market. And that software can only do as much as the team knows how to ask it to do. And that's going to be true when we talk about AI as well. You got to be able to ask for the information the right way. The other thing ABM is it's not always a silver bullet. I often see companies where they think that if they get into ABM, that's going to solve everything. And that within a year, they're going to be all ABM and it's going to triple their business. The thing is, they don't always give it the right resources, or they think it's going to solve everything, and then they don't put enough training or enough manpower around it. You get out what you put in. So it is definitely not the kind of thing that it's just going to solve everything like a magic pill. You have to spend time on it. You have to think through things with it, your whole team, not just your marketing team, but your sales team and every other client-facing group needs to be involved in designing these journeys so that they're perfectly matched to the buying group you're trying to target.
Yeah, that is so fascinating. And I think that's a great point, that just saying you're going to start a certain practice doesn't mean that you're going to be great at it or that there won't be iterations. Could you give us an example? You know, it's so easy to think that something will just be implemented, and if you have the right system or the right software, like you said, that it will just work. And you pointed out really wisely that it takes some practice and iteration. And can you give us an example, perhaps, of one key thing that you did that seems to really help get that going in the companies you've worked with?
Yes, actually was it, I think Stephen Covey, one of the rules that he had was start with the end in mind. And so I usually would start any consulting engagement with a KPI session where we look at all the possible metrics that you might be able to monitor and which ones signify success to the team, and weed out all the ones that are good to know, but not necessary, and get down to 4 or 5. And it takes a while because people have their favorite KPIs and processes and so forth. But you get down to 4 or 5 things you're going to do and you're going to measure. And that's how you measure success for the program. Then you jump into all the planning, the journey mapping, the preparation for the campaigns, the piloting. And when you finally get back around to analytics, you've been monitoring these metrics the whole time. So you know you're going to make it. And then you can look at it at the end and say, yeah, this is how we did that. We kept keeping the end in mind.
That is great advice. And one thing I want to ask for a follow-up is, who was in the room with you setting those KPIs? So when you say you had the team together, who would that generally be?
Right. Now, this goes back to the comment I made a few minutes ago, which was companies that try to do ABM with just their marketing team are already putting themselves at a disadvantage. The whole team needs to be the marketing, sales, and service, and sometimes the BDR leader. Anybody who's going to be touching the client needs to have part of the workshops where the design of the journey happens, where the metrics get captured at the beginning and then the journey gets built, the campaigns get built, all the metrics are monitored. All that needs to be done by a core team that's not just marketing. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a lot of top of the funnel collateral, not much else.
Yeah, I love that. And I imagine sitting in those meetings, there are a lot of aha moments where members of that wider cross-functional team realize that someone made a really good point, that they just weren't exposed to that part of the customer journey. So I love that.
Yeah, and content is definitely one of the cases where I see the value of getting the whole client-facing team together. Because honestly, marketing wants to create top-of-the-funnel materials targeted at the core champion. So the sales team knows that they're going to need all those other buying committee members They're going to need security documents for this one, and they're going to need terms and conditions for this one, and they're going to need a use case for this one. So they've already probably prepared those things on their own without marketing, just because they had to, because they know how it really goes down. And it becomes really eye-opening for marketing to see in a content planning session for the whole journey, just how they're only providing the top of the funnel materials.
Yeah, I love that example. Thank you for expanding more on that. I know you talked about what ABM is not. Did you have one more point there?
Yeah, I actually did want to talk a little bit about what AI and ABM could be together, what they are and could be. So I've done some thinking about ways AI could be incorporated. And I'm not saying that all of these things, that I know that all these things have happened at somewhere, but just based on what I usually ask teams to work on as part of their ABM process. Target identification is at the top of the list. And AI could help sort and identify targets from multiple databases. And that's just sorting through the data and making sure you've got the right list is the first place you would need to start. And then the sales process also needs personalized materials. That's something AI could definitely be valuable at. Mm-hmm. They could assemble personalized marketing tools, sales presentations, roadmap decks, or even just do the research on the company so that the decks can be personalized based on the information about the company and the people. And then going through the phases, there's generally a discovery phase, a design phase, and a development phase. And there's lots of ways that AI could be leveraged. Obviously, we know it can write copy, but it can also be used to take that same copy and reword it for different personas, if you feed them the personas. So that buying committee could get the same information in just a different language. It could be used to assemble previous decisions and data into a journey map for each persona and each account, and then enable team members to understand when it's their turn to make one of those touch points happen. One thing that sometimes happens in companies is that there's a lot of confusion over who's going to do what. And swim lanes are a nice way to think about that, because it's kind of like you have your lane, you're moving along, but you need to know when you're going to pass the baton, or maybe a relay race is a better metaphor. But AI can help with that, right? The signal came through, so now it's time for the next stage. You can have them almost be your personal assistant.
Excellent. And so as a team member then, you've talked about the kind of tasks AI could do, that it could do faster, right? It might take a human being quite a bit of time to look at multiple different databases and try to pull together all the different data and signals. So as you're managing AI as a team member, we would also be thinking about how you assess performance, correct? And how do you assess AI's performance and kind of keep AI on the rails, might be a way of saying it.
Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I always am polite to ChatGPT, because I feel like if I say please and thank you, it might do a better job for me. I don't think that has any basis in reality, but I do think it starts to feel like a member of the team. And so, as such, you wanted to use it for its best skills and not waste its time on other things, and not expect it to be something that it's not, just like you wouldn't with a team member. I would say it would be great to use AI for something like looking at patterns and finding the next best offer that would be applicable to an account or to an individual. That's a perfect fit. Identifying scenarios where they're fitting into a pattern, their journeys are following a pattern, and that means that their next offer should be X. But another good use of AI, I would think, would be to assemble playbooks, because we always need documentation about what we did right and wrong, so that the next people coming behind us can refer to that. Governance documentation and playbooks are important, and AI can help us keep those in order, which is always kind of a chore. So, AI is great for things like that humans don't like to do, and it's great for things that involve complex pattern recognition. And I would think about those things more than copywriting.
Thank you. And I would imagine, you talked about how important KPI setting was, that you would evaluate how the AI was performing according to if it's helping you meet your goals at the end. Would that be a correct way of stating it, or would you want to say that somewhat differently?
Yeah, I would definitely want to leverage AI to make sure that touch points along the way monitored and adjustments are called out when needed, and metrics that are going off track need some attention, and then just to aggregate everything back, and obviously you need baselines, and then you need to compare to those baselines. So there's going to be tons of programs out there offering to do this in different ways. It doesn't mean though that you can't just use a spreadsheet and your own questions to ask. What patterns do you see here, and what would you do? Because it'll have a good opinion in most cases.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. And one question that came up to me when I was thinking about all these great things that AI can do that maybe human used to do and took kind of a long time. So what would you tell managers who are putting AI in as a member of their ABM team to do with the rest of their team? What could they give the rest of the team that would be more value generating now that AI has been given some of these other tasks that were a little bit more time consuming?
Well, human beings are best at adjusting and adapting. And AI only does that when it's got rules that it can follow. So I think human beings are always going to be needed to make the plans, to create the journey, to put the messages and offers and metrics in place. And then they can use AI's power to streamline all that. I think that's probably the best way to go about it. So human beings are always good at using lots of factors to assimilate that into plan and creating a journey. And that's what marketing is all about. It's creating the right message at the right time, all that. And you want to be using your creative left and right brain at the same time, doing all the things humans do, and then using AI to crunch through the numbers and look for the patterns and call out the milestones, and really just be sort of a support staff. And that will help the team go faster, and I don't think AI will mind. Even if I think it's good if you say please and thank you, but that's just my opinion.
I've actually read that AI performs, I don't know if they said it was performs better, but that it's best to use please and thank you. So maybe it's just because it needs to know how well it's doing for us. And if we use the nice words, then it really knows that it provided a good answer. But I love that. And I think what I see is that if you have the same budget and the same size team, and yet AI is taking over some of these tasks, then there's just so much more room to perhaps do more segmentation or find other areas where you can improve that journey where maybe the team just didn't have time before. So I think those are really exciting opportunities.
I think it's interesting to try A/B testing with AI.
Mm-hmm.
Ask it to run, 2 campaigns parallel, but with different offers, and see if there's any difference. That's the kind of thing that it could do very efficiently.
Yeah, those are always good to know what's working. And I would be interested in having AI help me run an A/B test and be interested to see what it would have to say and how it would set it up.